Sociology does not put the young person in the centre of the question, like what causes youth suicide. It's not saying that youth is important. It doesn't put the youth in the centre of the question. It actually wants to look at how society is organised. Now, I have to be honest, because Sarah will be able to share her insights as well as we go through. But my formal qualification would be in the sociology of education, whereas Sarah's got a broader sociological major, haven't you, Sarah? If she's there. Yeah. So my training has been particularly on Western education systems and what is wrong with Western education systems. So hence, when a lot of you come in, I'm often saying to you, it's not the school that's broken. It's not you that's broken, but it's the school that's broken. It's not you that has failed at school, it's the school that's failed you. So the sociology of education is often looking at inequalities. And so where I focus in my sociology is in the inequalities. And then I also have a background in criminology, which means I'm also interested in theories about deviance. Now, what deviance just means is behaviour that's not normal, not considered normal. Okay, so if Sosh or David decided to go and take their clothes off and sit outside in the corridors, that would be considered deviant, because it's not a normal behaviour. So deviant doesn't have to, and I'll give you another example as well. If my husband decided to go to a farm in outside the mighty Tron and do the herding of the cows in a full-blown suit, he is not breaking the law, but he's engaged in behaviour that's not considered normal. Okay, so that's what deviant means, things that aren't considered normal. And what sociologists like myself do, and Sarah, I do want you to add, if you can, how you would do this, but the two things I'm interested in is looking at the big picture via two ways. The first is history, the historical picture. Okay? I want to see the big picture historically. I want to see the whakapapa of something. The second way a sociologist will look at things is by looking at the organisation of a community and how a society, organisation of community, society. So the individual's no longer in the middle. Is Sarah still there for you guys?
Yes.
So how would you look at things, Sarah? Jump into the camera.
I would also add that it's about the norms and the scripts that society writes. So it's about what are the common things that society says is the normal way to live life. There's a script for how you do life, and there are some things like this is the normal way of doing it, and it becomes the script for all of life, for society and within particular cultures. And so you become deviant if you live outside that script. So something like the American dream, for example, becomes a script for people's lives, and whether they are able to live that out or actually unable to achieve it means that they're either following the script or they're not following the script.
So where I'm focusing on the scripting would be in my post-structural stuff,
Yeah.
which again is looking at that very, very concept of the norms. It's expected that when kids go to school, this is the behaviours that they will engage in. And that schools have, as you'll learn from me, schools have a particular function in society. They're not there to teach you. They're not there to teach you how to read and write. Schools are there to teach you how to be a self-disciplined individual. Noam Chomsky once said, I've got to get this quote, well, it's sort of a quote, it's a paraphrase, right? So it's a paraphrase. Noam Chomsky said, dare I stay at home one day and read lots of Einstein and learn, heaven forbid, I would be punished because I didn't go to school. If you think back to any experience in schooling, the main thing that's happening in schooling is around how you keep the kids self-disciplined. What is the purpose of silent reading? It's not to teach you how to read. It's to teach you that there are times that you should be quiet. And you can then think there are kids that can't fit into that script, don't fit into that script. Does that move on from what you're saying, Sarah?
Yes, it does.
Cool.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm quite big. I say that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what post-structural stuff is, but I'm big on words and groups. I woke up this morning, I decided because I learned that you need to, I've been scripted that if you've gone to bed late, you have 4 hours sleep and then you wake up fresh. But if you have 5 hours sleep, you won't wake up fresh, you wake up tired. So I decided I'll go for the 4 hours, so I got up really early. And then at 6 o'clock our alarm clock came on and I was on Facebook almost instantly in absolute anger, hearing about the new government policies on working with gangs. And the reason why is because of the danger of when you use words to use, this is another sociological concept, when you use words to label young people. And I've already done research on this in the past, and having a practice of police actually physically writing the family tree of families, gang families, and finishing with their young people is a very dangerous practice, and a sociologist would say. For me, it's distorting the use of whakapapa. I've done research on this and I've interviewed young people in one city in New Zealand. I can't tell you what city that was because of the ethics of research. These young people talked about knowing that their names were written on a family tree at the police station. And they had done nothing wrong, and the police would simply pick them up because of their last name on a Friday night. Simply pick them up because of their last name. The damage of that on our young people, the damage on labelling people who may not even be gang members, is huge. And we're going to go into some of that as well.
I actually had that experience the other day with a domestic violence incident. Straight outside my house, and I called the police. But when they came and they realised who it was, they just sort of walked away because they knew the guy that was doing it, and they knew that they'd been attended. They said to me, I've attended 10 of these before.
Did you hear that, Auckland?
No.
So one of our Wellington students said that they had an issue with a domestic violence incident, and they called the police, but when the police heard who it was and stuff, they decided not to come because it was a regular thing. But you all are working with young people, all of you, Wellington and Auckland, all of you have been working with young people at some point that have gone through the damaging process of having words attached to them. This is not developmental, this is societal. This is how sociology would start to go. Where's the damage? Okay, here's a test for you. When I say the 1890s, who is the theorist, the developmental theorist, and what is his famous word he invented? These are the ones that have done 5102. You've got the word, I heard it in Wellington. Scream it out. Starts with A.
Adolescence.
Adolescence.
Oh, sorry.
Who's the theorist? G. Stanley Hall. Okay. In the 18... And this is just a quick example, then we're going to move back into an activity, okay? Just to give you a picture of things. In the 1890s, Western society was going through huge changes. We talked about this for those of you who've done 5102, massively. Those changes in society included economic downturn across Western countries, and New Zealand will be included there. The Industrial Revolution in the UK in particular was coming to an end, and the rise of the Industrial Revolution in Germany was happening. In the European countries, there was a huge issue in the European countries with race. Believe it or not, you can be white in the same room and of a different race. And that was particularly the same case in that time. But particularly because of the economic downturn and because of changes within the Industrial Revolution closing in society, what we saw was a high youth unemployment rate and the rise of problematic behaviours amongst young people, including youth suicide. Now G. Stanley Hall comes along and says, don't worry folks, it's a problem inside the young person. Nothing to do with what's happening on the outside. They're going through a time of strung under, storm and stress. Adolescence is a time of turmoil. There's he even wrote in his books, there's absolutely no way of seeing this as anything else. Simply look at the society at the moment, it is in turmoil. These young people, their bodies can't help to go through turmoil. So everything he saw that was happening around, he blamed internally on the young person. Another guy was writing at the time, an early sociologist that we'll go into a bit later. His name was Emile Durkheim, and he talked about something called anomie and social strain. Do you want to talk into this, Sarah?
I'll let you take this one.
Okay, so Durkheim, and the key word, some of you that did 5102 will remember function. Durkheim is concerned with why things are happening, the function of things. So what is the function of all of this problematic behaviour that's going around? And he's also concerned with how societies stay stable. What keeps societies tight? These will be things like rituals. These will be things like tight social connections. These will be things like even a sense of certainty and purpose. Now he said, when all this problems were going on, that there's so much change happening in Western society that the cohesion of Western society has been broken. These young people have lost a sense of purpose and connection with their society because all the social structures are broken. Because they can't find themselves, things are going wrong. One of those things that goes wrong is suicide. When you're completely lost, when everything is broken around you, suicide can be a result. Anomie means a breakdown in social structure. He also said, in societies where those social structures are really, really tight and too tight that there's no way to escape, you risk suicide as well, and those other problematic behaviours. Why? Because a young person can't break free. So a good example of that is Japan. So if you look at two countries of high suicide rates, New Zealand and Japan, Japan would be an example of the expectations are so tight on these young people, if they can't meet them, they might do something that, that ends up causing heartache for people that love them. Now when I look at things historically through the eyes of Durkheim, I see that there are times in New Zealand history where suicide rates are really, really high. And if I look at what's happened in society in those times, what's happened in Christchurch in those times, what's happened in New Zealand in the 1980s, all of a sudden I'm going, oh my God, what's happened to Māori and the urbanisation of young people gradually, I'm starting to step back and going, this is much bigger than blaming it on them and blaming it on their families. This is much, much bigger. When I look at things geographically, which hopefully we might have time to do this morning, if not next week, when I look at things geographically, I go, oh, that makes sense why in Wellington, the two peak areas for youth suicide in Wellington, to give you a Wellington example, Auckland, and you'll have your own examples, but the two peak areas are Vic University, where young people are out there with high expectations from their parents, particularly in law, and the Hutt Valley, where young people find themselves in a state of hopelessness. Durkheim helps give me a pair of glasses. He helps give me that red pill. To go, oh, I shouldn't be blaming it all on the young people. So what we're going to do, Sarah, up there you've got some paper printed out, those pre-Enlightenment Europe to Treaty and New Zealand papers?
Yeah.
Okay. Each table's got those. What I want you to do on the tables, and some of you who have done 5102 will remember this activity, but this is to start to give you more tools, more ways of looking at the world. We're going to look at things sociologically first, historically. Now, who can remember what the Enlightenment was? I'm taking you all back to the first year, love this. Who had me in the first year?
Enlightenment. Is it timeline?
Kate, can you remember what it was?
No, I don't remember.
So the Enlightenment is around the 1600s in Europe, just so you've got an idea of where that fits. And that is a period of time where the university ended up taking more dominance in Western thought and Western culture than the church. And so spirituality became a thing of the past. And so things like rituals and that in Western context started to take a backseat. Okay, we'll talk more into the Enlightenment as we go through this bit, but what I want you to do is on those bits of paper, very first thing I want each of the groups to do is to brainstorm in those periods of time as many events, just events, as many events, local and world, that you can think of happened in those times. Okay, I'll give you 10 minutes to do that. We'll switch the phones off, Sarah, and can you ring me back in 10 minutes?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you. See you soon.
See you soon. I know.
Pre-Enlightenment in Europe to Enlightenment in New Zealand. What's happening here?
Just events at the moment.
It's the only way. Like the rainbow.
I think the yeah, no, on that one, that's one thing help. So it's prior to the period. Yeah.
Oh,
And then they're going to the next period. Like a timeline. When will Geez, what was going on? So the 1600s.
Other terrorism next as well.
What's that?
So you mean Māori language? The language?
Yeah.
Oh, I believe there's the most various ways. Some of them is soul. Some of them is thing. It was between the period and this, you know.
Confiscation.
How many does they?
Yeah, no, I think Māori was
women's suffrage.
so we're doing this period,
Women's suffrage.
which is prior to,
Prior to 1848. Oh, well, but you.
so we're doing the time.
So is it events happening in New Zealand at that time?
Oh, this is like a year.
European.
That's what I've heard.
Oh, okay, so there was, I don't know,
1780s was the.
oh, yeah, that's all.
18.
Sorry.
What's happening over
American.
So,
But